able to address these matters are this. And it is infuriating for Office of the Head of Service, of which we have duly signed a letter to ask a deputy director to represent her in this major stakeholders meeting. It's not acceptable, and we're not going to tolerate it. We are given 1 hour within which somebody of high rank must be here with us, or else we will tell Nigerians that as representative of the people, we are worried that people are dying, and we have sacrificed, left our home, and be here so that we can address national issues. And these issues, everybody's eyes on today's meeting to see how we can come out of it so that service delivery can be restored. So we're giving 1 hour to her, and let us get somebody represented. Otherwise, we'll take the next step that we're going to. She either comes or she sends somebody at least at the rank of permanent secretary. That cannot be accepted, just like what happened with the Ministry of Health. I'm not sad with the condition of the Federal Ministry of Health being that they are the mother of this thing. They are the ones that are supposed to safeguard our health. They are the ones that are supposed to give our this thing. Any other meeting, as the country is boiling, people are dying, it's uncalled for not to come here. We must know as the healthcare providers, we have emergency, and where we are now as far as healthcare delivery is concerned, the ministry that should know that we're in a state of emergency. We are battling to deal with the cholera outbreak in the country. Third wave is around the corner. Purchasing power of average Nigerian has gone down. So we have no reason now to, that people cannot access care from private hospitals, that we cannot consider as an emergency to come and address issues so that service delivery, which is a key pillar in health system, can be restored in the country. That is not acceptable. Honorable members, I think I'm going to raise a motion that we're going to go on, somebody will raise a motion. We'll go on recess for 1 hour to allow the major stakeholders to be here with us. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and make our necessary position. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My dear colleagues, I hereby move the motion that this meeting be adjourned for a 1 hour period to allow the relevant stakeholders avail themselves.
I so second the motion as moved by my honorable colleague.
Is represented by a director without any covering letter to the committee on why neither the Minister for Health, State, and PAMSEC cannot be here, knowing fully that this meeting was well circulated, the invitation. It was even advertised free of charge on behalf of the committee by the media because of the highest expectation from Nigerians on the outcomes of today's meetings. So we thought that is not acceptable, and let us go for a recess and then invite the ministry to be appropriately represented. And that's why we have to go for an hour recess, agreeing that by 19 minutes we should be back to continue with the meeting, hoping that at that time appropriate personalities will be present to allow us to have a very fruitful deliberations. Before going into the meeting, I also have some CMDs that have tendered their apologies to be late, and they are currently around. One of them is my mentor, my teacher, and whom I have learned so much in addressing issues, and who has also meant so much to my life, Professor B. Akele. Please introduce yourself so that we can continue. At any time we are having a wave of COVID-19 pandemic, it will be preceded by actions of interruption of services delivery in the country. And that is not a very good news for us. The strike has commenced already by Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, and we have their demands and reason for re-embarking on the strike. So the aim of this meeting is to clarify misinformations, track progress so far, and then where we have some problems that cannot be easily handled, we fashion out ways that we can listen. But let me be clear to Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors in particular, that the National Assembly has no oversight mandate over state matters, especially in health. And this has constitutional backing of which you are aware. But however, the National Assembly can work closely and appeal to the state to ensure that service is done, justice is done to workers. And let me also tell you, your audit director and the national president of Association of Resident Doctors who vividly agree with me yesterday. I called them so as to request for some document and information that I would pass to the executive governor of Kebbi State, who also double as the chairman of Progressive Governors Forum, because they have called for an emergency meeting to be able to address state matters that is concerned this strike. And all the documents forwarded to me has also been forwarded to the governors, and I believe yesterday and this morning they are deliberating on that, and we are hoping that the outcome will be favorable to all of us. This is very, very vital if we insist, as that is a condition of restoration of services. You cannot hold somebody responsible for what he is not. Actually, he doesn't have the mandate to work on it. That's the issue. And then when this issue also arose, I've also had cause to interact with the Association of Resident Doctors, National President of the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors. He also gave me some key demands, upon which, if we are able to do much on that regard, we'll have, in the shortest possible time, restoration of service delivery. The restoration of service delivery for all of us here is very important. One I've made a mention, life loss can never be regained. Incapacitation can only be compensated little bit. Some are such a damning that you cannot do much. I cited an example for a woman who has obstructed labor and needed to have an emergency cesarean section, but because of distortion of service delivery, we cannot do that until the baby is severely asphyxiated and may end up with having severe cerebral palsy. And you all know that that is something that nobody will pray to have it in his family. Such incapacitations are not reversible. So when you look at also the purchasing power of average Nigerian has gone down, the dollar is, the naira is falling down day by day. And also that if you agree that we have limited access to service delivery in public hospital in this condition, all these foods make it mandatory for all of us to come quickly, agree and address issues so that we can restore service to average Nigerian who have nowhere to go. We are in a situation that even if you have where to go, in some states you cannot even have the private sectors that can take care of our disease. So before you can be transferred from one center to another, you might have another permanent impairment, and that neither you nor me is excluded in that scenario. So please let's pay much attention so that we can quickly see the way of resolving these matters for service to be restored into the country. Honorable Minister, the NARD made in one of their decisions that we are going to address the key major issues before going to the lesser one. There is issue of migration of doctors from GIVMIs to RPPIs, and NARD forwarded at least a name of 11 hospitals that are yet to be migrated. However, I've consulted with most of the CMDs, I call them one after the other, to find the reality of the claim by NARD. Unfortunately, I can say that most of the hospitals stated clearly that the condition of the NARD wasn't correct. And we therefore invited them to come with relevant document that will back their claim. And I think if I can be permitted, when we are going to ask the minister to comment, then we'll listen. So we have to clear those issues first so that NARD will be convinced. You have made mention of University of, Federal Medical Center, Yola. I'm going from my extreme right, of which you have mentioned that that there were no migration. But the CMD gave me a contrary information. I would therefore invite the MD, Federal Medical Center, Yola, my senior colleague, Professor Abubakar Mohammed, to please shed light on what is the true situation, who were appointed prior to getting clearance from the offices I've mentioned in anticipation that they can be converted. So because this is not a local appointment, they have their dues to be paid always. But unfortunately, for certain reasons that occur along the line, 3 reasons mainly. One, the fact that the COVID-19 interrupted service delivery and also thereby reducing the IGR of the hospital. 2, the attempt to mobilize more funds for non-COVID and COVID intervention programs led to the federal government to mop up money from some areas, set lines in the budget. And then lastly, this incessant strike has also negatively affected the IGR of the hospitals. So because of this issue, the money available to the hospital has gone down seriously. Some hospitals were not able to do their mandate of paying those doctors that are rendered service for a very number of months. So these are all issues that we have to discuss. So Yola, please, what is the situation of your hospital as at today?
Well, having been in the legislature before, I know what it takes. So thank you very much for this move that you have made. That's the first. The second thing is to say that, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I didn't have any information or invitation to this meeting. And I thought I made it clear before that there are 2 ministers in the Ministry of Health, and I ought to receive an invitation. But let me just, because of the importance of the meeting here, I had to come in. And the Honorable Minister will join us because we were at a meeting together and I had to just leave to be part of this. The third thing is to also thank you for what you said earlier on. We need to put the facts, I repeat, the facts out there. If you look at the legislative list, exclusive, which has 68 items, and the concurrent, which has 30 items, nowhere is health mentioned in either of the lists. And where health is not mentioned as an item, either on the exclusive or on the legislative list, it means it's a residual item, which falls within the purview of the states. And you made that point. But in a situation where the federal is being held by the jugular to take the responsibility for actions of the states, I think that is not fair. And I think I need to make that clear up front. Then the last thing that I want to plead with you and your colleagues is that the items that our colleagues in NRD are talking about, they are itemized. I don't mind, let us take it one by one. We are not there in the public space where we can play some blame game. But we are within house. Let us know. I don't believe in blame game, but we need to really situate situation where they rightly belong. That is the only way for us to move forward. If something is my own fault, I will accept it and say, I apologize. This is what we need to do, and we move further. But if everything is just being heaped on the Minister of Health, I think that is very unfair. Thank you very much.
They are all on Locum, and last year when I tried to get a waiver, the waiver was declined. There was no approval from the head of service. And the current year we applied again and we got only 15, and we have about 82, 83 resident doctors on Locum, and they know their appointment was for 1 month, and every month they fill a form and submit. So their Locum is actually even month to month. I don't have anybody on a permanent.
Move forward, tender that form as exhibit.
Yes, sir.
So as we now you have 15 residents on regular appointment. Is there a waiver of 15?
No, just this year we are processing for budget.
Yes.
And also the federal character, but okay. It's only 15 that is approved.
Okay. Have you?
No, we have
okay,
to
processing.
We have to process the waiver for budget.
Okay.
And also the federal character, not to advertise.
Okay.
So all your resident doctors that are so far on
Locum.
they are on Locum.
They are on Locum.
So they don't have permanent and pensionable.
They don't have permanent
residency appointment in your hospital.
No.
Now please take note of that. That FMC Yola says only his doctors that are in discussion are on Locum, and they've agreed to be signing appointment every month, and they have been doing that, and he has been sustaining. They are paid through his IGR and other sources. Is that so?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we've also given them the opportunity to actually do their residency program during the time of the Locum, because we've been renewing it. Some are on the verge of writing the Part 1 exams.
Okay.
Honorable Minister of Health and other members of this panel, from the point of view of University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital, almost as of now, we don't have any resident that is on Give Me's platform. The only doctors that we have that I will say we just recruited them in the last, the appointment were given to them in April this year, and we have already forwarded the names for inclusion in the IP's office. And in the IP's, I think the IP's director is here. I visited him to his office regarding their enrollment into the IP's. We have got our waiver from the head of service for the recruitment. We have got the waiver from the federal character for the recruitment. We have also got the approval of the budget office for the recruitment of these doctors. Unfortunately, when we put it after the interview and everything compiled, I took it to the IP's office for the enrollment into IP's. The director told me that now they have put a new rule that you have to revalidate the head of service waiver that is given. So I have taken it to I have applied to the head of service as of now, and I'm waiting for them to give me the approval of the revalidation.
The initial waiver, was it granted this year or last year?
It's because the process is cumbersome. For you to replace your staff, you have to spend more than 6 months at any given time. So if you start, normally you will cross to the other year. It's very unlikely. If you apply to the head of service, it will stay like 2 months. If you apply to the budget office, it will stay for another 2-3 months. If you apply federal character, you have another 2-3 months. So it's unlikely that anybody will apply within the same year and then you get all the approvals. So the process is cumbersome, and that's one of the things that I really want to advise, is the process of replacement of the residents. That process should not be like the normal civil service. There must be a way to replace the resident, because every year residents exit twice. We all know the West African and the national postgraduate exams, they exit in April and May. And they also exit in October and November. So if we follow the normal civil service replacement exercise, every year you cannot replace the residents that have exited. So that's the challenge we are facing. So you get the residents that have exited and you cannot replace them, and essential services cannot be performed. I keep on saying this example is not only restricted to the residents alone. It's also affecting all the other workforce, the professional in the healthcare. The nursing is the same. The radiographers is the same. The other professional health workers is the same. Imagine I was giving somebody an example. Imagine in a ward that is managed by 2 nurses at a time. You are in the middle of the year and then you have 2 of the nurses have retired or have exited the system. And it means you have to go down, if you don't replace them by Locum or other means. You have to go down to only 1 nurse that will look after that ward before having the normal exercise. And you cannot take that exercise within 6 months. So do we live a situation where you have 2 theater nurses, they have retired, and you want to replace them? And then you have to wait for the normal replacement exercise? half of the services will go down. So I think there must be something that must be done with the office of the head of the civil service, with the budget office of the federation, in the way healthcare workforce is an emergency workforce. You cannot just follow the normal way in replacing healthcare workforce. So I advise strongly that we look at, and then residency training is not a 35-year service thing. Every 5-6 years they exit. So if we say that we take their own replacement like the normal civil service, that will bring all the challenges we are facing. So as of now in my institution, we are waiting for the head of the office of the head of the civil service to give us the revalidation of the already approved waiver by the office of the head of the civil service. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think the issue is revalidation. You have made clear statement. I think you have forgotten to include one major problem that's also affecting us, drain. Because this is something that you cannot even factor. If you say 6 months, drain is almost on a daily basis. So if people are living on a daily basis and you cannot replace them until after 1 year, I think it becomes definitely it's either you close the ward or the particular ward, or you have to go extra way. And I think we have to take that issue. I think I've seen some new faces. Honorable members, with their permission, let me allow them to, those members that have not introduced themselves to Kandi.
Minister, sir. Thank you for inviting me. Currently, Ilorin does not have any issues of migration. We don't have any problem with migration. All our resident doctors have been migrated to IPs. The only place we are having issues now is the capturing of newly recruited resident doctors. And this was done legally because we got approval, waivers from a head of service, from a Federal Character Commission, from a budget office. That was for 20, and we did advertisement. What happened was that we did not effect the results of the advertisement until this year. That was about around April because of lack of funds. So, and we did that, and we forwarded our list to the IP's office for capturing. But just as Madugu mentioned, we were told at the IP's office that at least new regulation has been put in place, that we needed to get validation, which we have gotten. We have gotten the validation, and we have forwarded this to the IP's office. And within the week, we are going to get our resident doctors captured by IPs because we've gotten everything.
You told me privately that the capture is starting tomorrow?
Yes.
And you are sure?
Yes, we are sure.
Including the resident doctors?
Yes.
That's starting tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Or at the latest on Wednesday.
It's okay.
Minister of Health for State and other stakeholders, good afternoon. In Federal Teaching Hospital Gombe, is that we have 32 doctors that are on locum appointment, and we normally renew their locum every 2 months. And we are on the process of obtaining waiver for the employment, for the regular employment. We are now in the process of getting the waiver for the proper employment. As now, it is now at the level of the budget office. We have submitted to the budget office about 3 to 4 weeks ago. I think it is under process and we are following it up. And in addition to that, Mr. Chairman, is that the number given for us to actually employ for the doctors, we were given 15. And looking at the size of the hospital and the way the system runs, and even the number of doctors that we have right now that are on locum, that some of them have been on locum for almost 2 years now. With that, so I was given only 15, and we needed more than that because of the the nature of the residency training. It is actually dynamic. It is not something that is very, very static. just like the normal civil service. So I think I am appealing that we should find a very tangible way in which the entry into the residency program will be more easier and more seamless. Because the way it is now, we have to write the number of people that have exited, either died, or maybe they have retired. These are the numbers that we will forward to the office of the head of civil service of the Federation. And they will look at it based on the parameter that they use, and they will now decide the number of what is going to be given to us. And then we will follow through the federal character, then later to the budget office. Then finally, we will have our own waiver that we will take to the IPPI's office, then later the validation, and later then. So if you look at it, the whole system is very, very cumbersome. It will take you even up to a year before you actually achieve a single cycle that will come up. So actually, even with this waiver now, I won't be able to actually even take off 1/3 of what the hospital needs as far the accreditation given by the National Postgraduate Medical College in terms of the number of resident doctors that are supposed to be employed, to be trained based on the number of consultants I have in my hospital. So actually, this is a big issue that needs to be looked into. So that after this meeting, we are going to have a...
So in summary, you have many number of doctors on Locum appointment.
Yes.
Which you have agreed with them to renew their appointment every 2 months.
2 months, yes.
You have been paying them regularly based on the agreement you had with them.
Sir,
that's from your distance statement. I'm just summarizing.
Information, sir.
Let me summarize
Okay.
this now. And then you have applied for waiver. Only 15 was granted by head of submission.
Yes.
And it's taking you longer time to get it processed.
Yes.
So the other doctors are on Locum appointment. And that's why initially I took time to explain these two aspects. I can remember as the Secretary General of Nigerian Medical Association when the issue of Locum doctors came in, and Locum housemanship and voluntary housemanship. Our regime then stood against it because we knew you can be given that Locum appointment for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. But doctors agreed to go on that. So that's the hope your mic. Agree to go on that. So you see, I mention, if you agree to go on Locum, what does it mean? You are sacrificing your rights. Rights so many things. Rights so many things. So what is needed is for us to see how we can fast track that conversion. Taking 2 years on Locum is really not acceptable. None of us will accept that. And I think when the time for the head of service office response comes, we'll see how we can address this.
Honorable members and Honorable Minister of Health, my senior colleagues here present. As for Federal Medical Center Jalingo, we've actually not started residency training. However, we have some of our medical officers that have been sent for training in various accredited centers in the country. We offered appointment to some medical officers on Locum basis because of the challenges that we usually have sometimes. And these medical officers that are on Locum in our centers, we review it monthly, month by month, based on needs, just to fill the gaps and challenges that we have in the center. For now, all our permanent and pensionable medical officers and those on supernumerary, all of them are on IPPIs. Only these ones on Locum that are on GIVMINs. The center is actually pursuing a waiver so that if that is achieved, maybe some of these ones will be absorbed into this system.
So all the medical officers with regular appointment have been migrated?
Yeah, they are on IPPIs.
Only those on Locum appointment
Yes,
that are
that
yet
are
to
on
be
give meets.
migrated,
Yes,
and you are
sir.
processing waiver.
Yes, sir.
That's the situation with
Yes,
this.
my MD gave me a letter with the list of those on Locum. Okay.
With respect to University of Abuja Teaching Hospital, Gwawalada, I can confirm that all the resident doctors that were previously on Locum have migrated to IPs, from GiveMe's to IPs, because we've gotten the necessary waivers. The total, we had 40 of them, and they have all been migrated to IPs, and not just migrated to IPs, captured and paid. So I suspect it was an error that University of Abuja Teaching Hospital was listed as one of the places where resident doctors are still on GiveMe's. And I'm sure after this session, I will liaise with the president, national president of NARD, so as to reconfirm what I have said. It is also true to say that out of these 40, about 4 of them had issues with either account number or nomenclature. And IPs, Mr. Chairman, have done very well with respect to our institution. And I'm sure by the end of this month, those 3-4 cases will be rectified. So, Honorable Minister, thank you so much for the support to ensure that we do not have this problem in our university teaching hospital, where we manage, as we speak now, we have about 7 cases of COVID-19 on admission. And each time we run to the agencies of government, they've been very, very sympathetic to our cause. And therefore, as I said, I suspect it was an error for NARD to list us as being one of those that are currently being owed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Prof. Pemi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dear Minister, good afternoon, sir. Mr. Chairman, we had about 30 doctors who were always on Locum. They were always on Locum, about 30 of them.
Louder so that members.
I said we had about 30 doctors or thereabout, 30 or thereabout, who were always on Locum. So we had about 30 doctors, or thereabout, who were always on Locum up until December last year. We have commenced the processes of migrating them. We have the waiver from the Office of the Head of Service, which we need to revalidate and then apply to the Budget Office and other people. So I'm sure these are the people that NARD is talking about.
They have not been given offer of residency appointment. They are on offer of Locum.
They have.
Sure.
We have.
Because the NARD will also respond.
No. When we got the waiver from the Office of the Head of Service, in order to facilitate the process of first refusal, because we thought we could finish it, we had actually given them letters for residency, since they were already doing the residency.
Okay, so they have been appointed?
Yes.
Have they been migrated?
No, they have not.
Why?
Because we are processing the other waivers. We've gotten the waiver from the Head of Service, and we are processing the other ones.
See, for you to give offer of appointments, of which I know in many aspects, the Head of Services make it clear that you need 3 waivers. That of the Budget Office, that of Head of Service, and then Certificate of Compliance from the federal character. And that's the only period that we now say that you will apply for migration. So it means we have a problem in your own hospital. That actual appointment was offered prior to getting of necessary authorization from relevant authorities. Is that so? Because we have to make it clear in case of trying to intervene.
Yes, sir.
So for Calabar, I think the issue is that appointment has been offered to relevant doctors prior to complete processing of waiver. So that's another issue. Then we'll look at how we are going to address such issues.
For the University College Hospital Ibadan, we have 205 resident doctors who were on GiveMe's and are yet to be migrated. These were resident doctors who
How many of them?
205. We usually have about 560 resident doctors. And these are doctors who responded to our advertisement, and they had a written interview, and some of them had a Zoom oral interview because some departments insisted.
Now the question is, the advert, was it preceded by relevant clearance from relevant authorities, giving you the go-ahead to recruit?
Yes, we got approval.
You have
to
the waiver from head of service,
but we didn't get waiver.
Eh?
But we didn't get waiver from the head of service.
Yes.
Because this was during COVID. Many of the offices were shut, and we were really acutely short-staffed. And in addition, we got a letter from the Honorable Minister of Health that we should cooperate with the Oyo State government in the management of the pandemic. So many of our doctors and other health workers were ceded to the Oyo State government. And not just that, we have had a huge service enhancement or increase. We took over a hospital in Jebu-Ode, the Otubato Ashe Pediatric Center. We also jump-started our Okupu Comprehensive Health Center in Osun State. We also have an outstation in Shekweteri, which is a comprehensive health center too. So all this increased our need.
So in summary, you advertise, you recruit prior to the processing of necessary documents. Because you know, if you look at our invitation letter, we
Yes.
said where we have such issues, we should bring forward to us evidence.
Yes, I submitted a document.
Waiver from the relevant authority. Is it there?
What I'm saying is, we
Let's just
requested
simply
for,
put it properly so that we know argue. We try to find out.
not
You
for all of
you recruit before getting the waiver.
No, that doesn't capture it very well.
Okay, how does it? How is it done?
We had waivers to recruit some, which is in the document I gave you, but we added more during COVID that we did not have waiver
So
for.
how many did you not have waiver?
The number that doesn't have waiver are the ones that were placed on Give Me now, who
How many of them?
161 resident doctors and 44 medical officers. 161 resident doctors and 44 medical officers. However, we have an unutilized 100 for resident doctors, which IP's office, we later learned that we had to revalidate. We had not revalidated it because the letter we got from the head of service declined.
It's very simple, Prof, if we understand ourselves.
Yes.
You said the total you have recruited is how many? 200?
That needs to be migrated, 205.
205.
Yes.
Out of these 205, how many have waiver?
No. The ones that have waiver are not included. Those
They are
ones
not included.
they
So you
are-
have 205 to be migrated.
Exactly.
Okay, those who find prior to giving them their necessary, the advert and asking them to apply and then recruitment done, did you have to go ahead from the office of the head of service and others as waiver that recruit those 205?
We did not have the waiver
So you
because the
don't have
waiver came and was declined. We had initiated the recruitment while we
You
applied.
see, because it's very important so that we know how to address it.
So the waiver was declined.
The waiver was
Okay.
declined after you have granted them offer.
Exactly.
Okay, so it means we have 205 doctors who were recruited without waiver.
Yes,
Necessary document from the DC.
that's correct.
So we have 205. Okay, so it means UPTH, UCH, and then University of Calabar also teaching hospital will have the same issue. Any of the CMD here that have not, as of today, University of Ahmad Bello University Teaching Hospitals area have no resident that is not migrated. Only one that remained, and he has been distant. And when that happened, he asked me, Wilawa, you are shaking your head. I asked you to give me the phone number of the local president of ARD. You can remember that. You sent the local president's number to me, and I've called him, he confirmed the situation that the CMD told me. And if you remember, I called you back and communicated to you. I'm going all this in just so that we can shorten sufferings of average Nigerian. And I've called you to call the local president, confirm what he told me, and you get back to me. You never did that today. So I will agree that, you didn't call me on Zaria issue. So I agree that what the CMD told me and your local president succeed. Because that's what happened. I have that communication with feedback to you. So what is the contrary opinion of the local resident? Is this thing. If you have this thing, then we give it. But as far as I'm concerned, this thing. So honorable members, honorable ministers, we have seen these true situations of the hospital that have not forwarded to me that they have problems. Before members, please can you make your comments so that I will ask NARD to state their own position.
Mr. Chairman, sir, health is very essential, especially to the rural dwellers. My first contribution is an appeal, especially to the Office of the Head of Service. They should take our healthcare and education serious in most of this employment, in any place that is very genuine, because in some areas, when they lack most of all this manpower, they go on their own way to engage them. And by the moment most of all these doctors wait for their payment, that is the time they started disturbing their national leadership. And that is where most of this problem arose. And I know too well, Mr. Chairman, that before now, during the time of COVID, there is a FEC where an approval was given to the health services for employment. Is such approval still implemented or not? That is number two. The second one, Mr. Chairman, the third one, Mr. Chairman, is that I still want to appeal to our colleagues. This is the first time you have a proper intervention in health sector where you see the legislatures, the executive sitting together to mediate in order to bring everlasting solution. There is something I want to appeal. When most of these things they diverted from agreement, get back to the leadership, to the chairman, than calling for strike. It have serious effect in Nigerians. It have a bad image for Nigerians. I believe reconciliation can help us and portray us in good mood. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable colleagues, listening to all the discussions, I think in medicine we said prevention is better than cure. And unless we put on our thinking cap, this is not the end of this type of meetings. We'll continue to have it. Because this eyepiece, I can see for non-regular staff like residents will continue to be a problem. It takes them more than 6 months to migrate somebody. Why can't the Federal Ministry of Health, the head of service, budget office sit down and plan a human resource planning for all the hospitals based on bed capacity? You are supposed to have this number of consultants, you are supposed to have this number of residents, you are supposed to have this number of different professionals, so that everybody is captured in the budget. For regular staff, let them all be on IPs. Those non-regular like residents, they can remain on GIVMIS, which can be monitored as well, so that you don't have all these headaches. If residents exit twice a year, a CMD needs to just bring a letter to the Federal Ministry of Health. These people have exited. We want a waiver so that we can replace them. And the following month they are paid. Instead of all this confusion of people starting work for 6 months, they have not been paid. We will continue to have crisis. So, Honorable Minister, I'm begging, please, this is an executive issue. Let's have a proper human resource planning for all the hospitals, from the biggest teaching hospital to the smallest federal medical center. Let them know how many consultants they are supposed to have, how many nurses they are supposed to have, how many residents they are supposed to have, and anytime there is problem of change, all they need to do is run to you and confirm to you, these are the people that have exited, we need replacement, and they can replace since there is already budget. So at the beginning of the budgeting year, they come
with their budgets covering the numbers that they already have. I think once we are able to do that, all this confusion will stop. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The Chairman House Committee on Custom Services.
I was in the meeting of custom, as he said, I'm the Chairman House Committee on Customs. I want to beg, plead, on behalf of Nigerians. The chairman is aware. I lost my daughter last year. Strike. All the hospitals were on strike. I called them in the midnight. There was nowhere we could go. Unfortunately, we lost her. So life, once it's gone, it's gone. You can't take it back. So also, on the part of government, we are government, but the executive executes all these programs. I used to listen to this health program on the television, whereby the NARD always complain, talking about 5,000 hazard allowance. I don't understand. Is it $5,000 or 5,000 naira? So we should not be ridiculous. No, we should not be ridiculing ourselves by talking that a whole medical doctor. I have one of my children studying medicine. I know how much I'm paying in a private university to even train a medical doctor. So it is very, please, I want to plead, please, to both the executive arm of government and also to the medical doctors that are here, that let us find a common ground. Everything should not be strike all the time. Can't we get alternative to this strike? So that instead of going on strike, we have a reconciliation, we have a common ground, so that our people will not suffer unduly. Just like I told you now, that my daughter that is gone forever. We can't get her back. So also as I'm talking now, life has been lost. So please let us find a common ground instead of going on strike all the time. Thank you so much.
And I remember that time you said anything that costs you that night, from 0 to 10 million, you are ready to pay. Yes. To ensure that your daughter has services. And we have virtually called all the hospital. It was at a very late distance we got a missionary hospital. Yes. And then before she reached the missionary hospital, we lost her. So these are issues, and that's why I said I can be a victim. Any one of us here can be a victim. So let's see how we can understand ourselves and see how we can cooperate and then restore services. It's a key in health system, services delivery. It may not be adequate, I will see it, but absence of it can present as havoc. And that's where we are now, and we must come out of it within the immediate shortest possible time.
Who gave you the authority to recruit 200, 205 without waiver? Is that the common practice to go to recruit without waiver?
No, it's not the common practice. And like I said earlier on, this happened during COVID, where we needed to extend our staff to the Oyo State government at the isolation centers. We also have other centers like Shekpeteri Comprehensive Health Center affiliated to us.
Let me take you up on that. Because I believe each state got funds for COVID during the COVID period.
We didn't get.
Oyo State didn't get.
No, not Oyo State, UCH.
No, you said you extended your services to Oyo State.
Yes.
So if
Our
Oyo
doctors
State got, shouldn't Oyo State pay for those for the services rendered?
They didn't pay.
Why?
I don't know. They didn't pay. But we got a letter from the Honorable Minister of Health that we should cooperate with them in the management of the pandemic. And we were not told that our staff would be paid because they are being paid from UCH. However, there's a document I submitted to Honorable Suduno. On the letter, I just wrote that what are the measures Oyo State government will put in place for their health insurance, for their safety, and all that. So they said they were going to give them some tokens. So it was not as if they were being paid salary at all.
So was those Was that obligation, was it honored?
Was it?
Honored, you said the token.
Well, not all of them. For instance, there was no health insurance for them. However, they were given some tokens. I don't know how much. Is Director of Finance?
No, you see, no problem. The reason why we're saying this is because it's like you go ahead and you employ and you throw the problem to the government. Because there's a reason why sometimes you see that the federal government, maybe they decline giving you waivers or they reduce because they know what they're working with. We don't have limited resources. So they know, you always have to work with them. The budget office, the head of service, you have to work with them. So when I see 205, that's quite a large number. If it was maybe a lesser number, I will excuse that, but 205 is quite large.
Well, sir, UCH probably is the largest teaching hospital, is the oldest teaching hospital, and we have a number of other affiliated hospitals that we take care of. And therefore, understandably, the number of people we recruit is much higher. We are a hospital with 1,200 beds in UCH alone, not to count. In UCH main campus alone, we have 1,200 beds, not to count our Okuku Comprehensive Health Center, our Shekpeteri Comprehensive Health Center, our
Anyway, sorry. Lastly, let's not dwell on that. You see, you have to be proactive. You know how large your institution is, and you know your needs. You do need assessment. Shouldn't you work with them ahead of time to let them know? Because, okay, all I've been hearing is how long it takes to get waivers. Shouldn't you work with them, the head of service, the budget office? Maybe you guys can sit down and streamline this process to cut down all the bottlenecks and let's make it more efficient. Why should it take 6 months for something that can be done within a month? I mean, it's not like we're not in the olden days where people push paper around. So can't you guys come together, sit down in a room and streamline the process? That's my advice.
Thank you very much. I think it's Honorable Minister, please, your comment before I call NARD.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and particularly of the Committee on the Health Services. Once again, I thank you for putting this together. Mr. Chairman, without wanting to, please, can we have one house, please? Please, without wanting to appear defending, particularly the CMD of UCH, Honorable Member, with all due respect, we are talking of circumstances in an emergency. And the primary duty of a doctor is to save life. And there are moments when you throw away protocols to save life. I mean, it's like, what we had some time ago where it was being reported that some patients with gunshot wounds were taken to hospitals, and it was alleged that some doctors will not attend to them. No doctor worth his salt should do that under any circumstance. So what I'm trying to say in essence is that with what was at hand as at that point in time, I want to believe that what the CMD did in the circumstance was appropriate. You could then go further to normalize. And that will, for me, will be appropriate. Honorable Leke Abejide, please accept my condolence. Because what you just shared with us is heart-rending. It is heart-rending. And he who feels it knows it. Thank you. I'm saying this Several times I had engaged our colleagues. I don't want to bother about being junior or it's not important. We are colleagues. But we need to tell ourselves the home truth. Because when it happens, he who feels it knows it. I pray for comfort for you, but I doubt if it will ever get out of your memory throughout your lifetime. And this is what we need to look at. This is what we need to look at. And I thank the MD of, Unimide, because he has given the picture. When you have a cumbersome process, he said it clear that it is almost impossible. It's like the camel passing through the eye of the needle to get these things done under 1 year. I have said it over and over. We just need to set aside help. If I want to take it further, and education, because these are two critical sectors that determine human development. And whether we need to have a national discourse and set these two sectors apart, particularly health, because without health we cannot do anything. You just mentioned one of the CMDs who came around for this purpose but could not come because he had some health challenges. All of us here now, we can only be here because at least we apparently look healthy. So we need to, and it's not about, I said it earlier, it's not about blame game. Oh, you caused it, you caused that. No, we must all, because a lot of things again that happen in the health sector, they may not necessarily be issues of the health sector. So please, I'm appealing to you to see how we can continue this dialogue, and I'm appealing to our colleagues in NARD. You can't, we have had about 3 strike actions within the space of 1 year or 6 months. It doesn't do any good to the image of doctors. That is the truth. It doesn't. We can, look, I'm a doctor, and I know over 40 years that I qualified. So I know what I'm talking about. We are not saying that what is happening is the best. It's not the best. But we must continue to work at it, but not at the expense of the lives of people. I think I will stop there for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Now that I think we have been without this, so these are issues of which you are going to call on the budget office, but let's listen. These are the hospitals that you have mentioned to me where your members have problem, and you have had their individual responses, because I told you these are the distance, so that we can try to listen. And prior to your coming, we have agreed, and we've all agreed that state matters. It's not in our own purview, so we cannot say anything about that. But I've told your members that even yesterday night, His Excellency Senator Atiku Bagudu, the Executive Governor of Kebbi State, demanded for so many documents of which I've talked to you while you are on your Zoom meeting, and later on you forwarded those documents to me. And I believe even the Nigerian Governors Forum is taking this issue serious. So we have a bilateral approach, unlike the unilateral issues of addressing federal level, because they are the one that requested for that document. So, and I believe they have gone ahead to continue with dialogue. So please, you have had response. What is your own take on?
I'm going to break it into two. I'll be very fast about it.
Okay.
Then ask us. And my condolences, sir. I also lost my auntie to COVID-19 during that period, and we lost 19 members during that period. I know it's quite difficult when we allow honorable members, when they are not actually supposed to sit, come back, to come out in the interest of the nation. But we need to get something right. And getting something right is when we tell ourselves the truth. Why we are still on strike today, Sir, my apologies, sir, to the minister. It's because of the Ministry of Health, mostly. Yes. Why we are still on strike, we are on another strike now, is because of the Ministry of Health. Of the Ministry of Health. My apologies to the minister first. And I will say it as it is. We have been honored enough for you to have called for a meeting twice. I'll say, sir. Let me just break it down a bit. And we have been honored that the Speaker of the House came to see us and invited us 4 times. This is the second time we are going on a strike in this year. Not 3 times. Not twice. The first one was on the 1st of April, called off on the 10th. The second one was started on the 2nd of August. Why are we having these bottlenecks? Because some people are not doing their jobs. It's a sad truth. I'll start with UCH, sir. University College Hospital, UCH, employed doctors under gift mix. The first one was in 2019, October. As it speaks now, people under the gift mix platform in UCH is about 901. Those in the budget office can tell for us. 901. There's a list there. I have a list, sir. I have the madam that have been there since January. I saw the list with Nuru. I didn't see any long list, sir. That's one. Then 2.
They are the implementing authority now.
Sir, I have the list. I'll bring the list out for you. And Nuru is here. If Nuru is budget office is here.
Okay, the IPPIs will look at the
budget office.
Budget office. Okay.
Nuru is here. Budget office will tell you. And in that list he has, 215 members were resident doctors. 600 and something were members under the gift mix, under non-regular. Locum gateman, Locum special advisors is what we saw. That was what led to the head of service when she went through that list, when at the instance of the speaker.
Okay, I think you said Locum special advisor.
I'm telling you, you go to UPTH, you see Locum media. Media. I'm telling you, media staffs. So let's not hide everything. The Ministry of Health is aware. 900 and something people, we didn't have a waiver. The ones you are saying that got a waiver during the pandemic was not in the pandemic. I'll show you appointment letters of those that were employed in 2019. And they have been there since 215. 10 have left. That's why it's now 205. That the CMD is saying. You give us problems. We have been here, sir, when when the minister said, Dr. Osaiki Henry, and I met Dr. Mora and said we should go and meet the Director of Hospital Services. That is where our biggest neck has been bumped. Because we go and meet her, she laugh about it and tell us it will be solved. And we're back again since January. I'll give examples. In UPTH, where we had problems with gift mix, we came here last time we came when you left your busy schedule and came here. We said the same things. Even here, it was agreed by her that there should be an expert waiver so that as you go, it can be replaced immediately. And she promised here, it's on the minutes of the meetings here. I know Matiko has it. When she said you don't need to go through all those waivers again, that all the CMDs needs to do is to write directly to them and they'll find a way out to replace those people. That's about 4 months back. Up to now, nothing has been done about it. Yes, you have the minutes there.
Okay, so we have issues with
That's it. Then Calabar. Yes, Calabar had employment of some residents recently. But they were paying from the IHR, but they had problems with their budget because most of the director of finance in the chief medical the hospitals tend to copy and paste the previous budget and bring it back again. So even when the money for the non-regular, yes, because whenever you ask the chief my Oga we know and Professor Momo we know. So more like when they removed the non-regular, the house officers from their budget, then I found out that they had just 6 million naira to pay the residents there. That is why they had difficulty paying. For those that in ABU, I understand they just sent us a list, and they're sending us a list now. They have over 104 locum that are paid under gift mix. The CMD here can tell us in ABU's area. Yes.
Yes. Let me the response he says. is that those on Locum, and I think Locum, and that's why I said even when we are in NMA,
Yes, sir.
we try to discourage doctors from taking Locum appointment. NARD, please, is there a difference between appointed resident and a Locum resident? Huh? Is there, as a civil servant, is there a difference?
All protocols duly observed. Honestly speaking, I am so speechless, and I've been taken aback that the major problem now we're faced with. I'm so happy that our CMDs here came and gave us a simple summary. The simple summary is that those that are saddled with the responsibility of recruitment, budgeting, and oversight of our hospitals have technically decided to take the health sector of Nigeria and put it in a danger. That is why the WHO, when it ranked the health system of all the nations, 190 nations, Nigeria is 187. If you want to see us easily, start from 190. We are just better than Myanmar, DRC, and Central African Republic because of these bureaucratic bottlenecks. This CMD, sir, had shown two things to us. They are all, I have here my teachers directly that taught me among them when I was a medical student. But I'm 100% sure they themselves, myself, and all the doctors here, and the head of service of the Federation, who is a doctor, and all doctors in the Federal Ministry of Health, if they were given locum, after medical school, locum for 1 month to go and come back, locum for 1 month, all of us will not accept it. All of us. We know that you, if you are sick, sir, and the doctor that will see you, he's already under probation for 1 month to see you. He doesn't know what will happen next month. He will not see you well. He will kill you. Of course now, somebody you have already subjected to psychological trauma by appointment, that his appointment is just for 1 month. Month to month, he will kill you. And the reason why that young man picks the appointment are two. One, the system will not work without him taking the appointment. He wants to survive. The CMDs have to do this so that an hospital will be open. If I were a CMD and take the FMCs and the CMDs, that I have to employ 40 people on locum for the hospital to open, I'll just close down the hospital and go and hand it over to the head of service. Because employing the locum officers is because they want Nigerians to survive. That is why they are forced to take locum officers and give them month to month. Believe me, you, anywhere in the world, if you tell them that this is the way you are running a hospital, they will tell you are a butcher. You are killing people. And this is what our CMDs have just told us, that we are killing Nigerians by giving doctors appointment on 1 month basis to survive so that the system works. And the reason why they are forced to do that is because a doctor is head of service that created a deliberate bottleneck that will prevent them from employing enough doctors to run the health sector. And surprisingly, the labor minister is also a medical doctor. I just watched him 2 days ago. He said he will sack residents and he will employ others. So who is ridiculing who? When the people that are running the hospital cannot employ, when they want to employ, they will go through a bureaucracy for 12 months. For goodness sake, I'm 100% sure the only teaching hospital functioning in Maiduguri, Borno State is UNTH, with IDPs of over 2 million people within the city of Maiduguri. And he could not employ. For 2 to 12 months, he was following a waiver. Sir, to be candid, I thought those CMDs that came are the CMDs that do not have problem. Let me tell you, sir, these CMDs that came without problem with give-me's, they are actually the people that came with a very big problem, that the government has deliberately put upon themselves a burden of killing the health sector, and they had no choice. So the only thing they will do is to employ a doctor on locum, and that doctor, they will pay him when they have money. When they don't have money, it means next month they will tell him no vacancy. How can we run such a health sector like this? So, on this matter, you said it rightly. When you are Secretary General of NMA, the NMA had made it expressly clear that Nigerian doctors reject casualization of the medical practice and medical doctors. Locum is not acceptable. You want to employ Nigerian doctors appropriately. You don't want to employ doctors, don't employ doctors. Don't casualize our profession. You will not casualize a laborer and casualize a highly professional Nigerian doctors. None of us here, doctors, will ever agree to be casualized as a medical doctor with his MBBS and fellowship during employment. And nobody we should allow during this regime to strangulate the Nigerian doctors and the health sector into forcing it to casualize medical profession so that system can work. So, sir, if you look at this, they are intertwined. They are intertwined. The medical directors employ this locum doctors, so-called locum, under their platform they have, GIFMIS. That is under the GIFMIS, those that have it. The fact that they don't have the GIFMIS, now they do it under their own IGR so that they can give services. And immediately a Nigerian doctor is employed or he's practicing in Nigeria, he's under NMA. NMA is responsible for his own welfare. He's responsible for his membership. And the pressure now, from those employed locum doctors will now be transmitted to their various affiliate groups, which is not. And me being in the NMA as the chairman of the young doctors, they now channel it through the young doctors committee to NMA. So at the end of the day, they feel threatened as Nigerians, doctors working in Nigeria. Most of them leave the country and the pressure comes back here. So for me, the suggestion I'll give here, sir, as a way forward, my simple suggestion is that hospitals, as far as recruitment is concerned for each hospital has the number of doctors they require, resident doctors they require, the consultant they require for every year. And the fact that the residency training program is a conveyor belt, sort of, that they enter, they exit. At the beginning of every year, automatically, Hospital A need 50 resident doctors in addition to 50 they have. Automatically in their budget every year, a space has been approved and budgeted for 50 resident doctors, 50 medical officers, 50 nurses they need for the year. So that within the year, at the appropriate time, they need to now fix in those people. They will conduct all the needed administrative requirements to make employment within that year. And there is no need for them to be jumping from head of service to budget office to Ministry of Health. And sir, if such has been done, I am not a prophet, I'm sure, likely, your daughter would have survived. Mine will survive today. Tomorrow, the old man in Askira village, his child will also survive. And these CMDs are really given a Herculean task. You have given them a very big work and you have not allowed them to do the work. They will be able to man the hospital effectively and services will run. So what we'll be looking at in this, in the interim now, what we need to do is clear the backlog of all those that have been employed. Nothing like locum. Those that are doing locum, it means there is a space and somebody is stopping you from employing them. Employ them appropriately. IPPIs go and capture them. Start paying them. And for the future, we now drive what we have to drive. This is the way we can get out of this quagmire today and tomorrow. If not so, you solve this problem today, give it 3 months. Let me tell you what happened last time. The last time we agreed on that they will be captured, all of them, on the Give Me platform, whatever, they will all be captured. They will be enrolled by IPPIS, and the process will continue. You know what they did? They went there, they said they will verify. They went and verified. After verification, they captured what they will capture, and they will now pay a little, and they stop paying again. And the problem now kept on coming back again and again. And here you are saying 12 hospitals. There are over 12. There are about 20-something hospitals that are having this critical problem. University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital did not come with a problem because he has to proactively work to get out of the problem, but he has fallen into another deeper problem, which somebody is sleeping on. He got the waiver. He has gotten the waiver, but somebody is telling him he will not be waived until he revalidates. Can you imagine? So this is where we are. And if we don't address those people doing this thing and call them in front and talk to them and tell them that what they are doing is they are disgracing the nation and they are disgracing the president of this country, who is also a father that is always trying to see things move forward, then definitely I'm sure we are going to be in problem. If doctors in UK, in US, in Canada, Egypt are getting 1 month locum every month, I'm sure many people will not go for medical tourism outside because they will also be killing them there. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. The figure I've mentioned, yes, I'm coming, based on the request of NARD. And in fact, UMTH was added because you have made a case that they have a huge problem when I discuss personally with you. But actually, most of you here will agree that I reach them one after the other to discuss. Because I'm worried.
What even showed that their problem is this bottleneck.
So, budget. Before you came, we have followed, based on NARD submission, hospital by hospitals. What we have understand now, there is preponderance of locum doctors in virtually all the hospitals. Some have been on locum appointment, ranging from 1 month to 2 years, as locum without conversion. 2, we have a short way of trying. Some, you've insisted with the order of service that before appointment there should be waiver. Processing of waiver becomes so much cumbersome that the shortest possible time you can get a waiver to employ, especially now that we have people exiting every day from training, from brain drain, and so many other compounding factors. It takes an average CMD 1 year to get an approval for him to recruit. And once you get the waiver in December, before you can recruit, maybe in January, that waiver needs revalidation. And revalidate also require another month for them to this. So it appears as if there's an indirect way of saying don't. While we say that there is no embargo in health employment with waiver, but the procedure is making it to have an indirect embargo on employment. DG Budget, how do we address these issues now?
NMA does not tolerate and does not accept and reject in entirety locum employment, casualization of doctor. I just want to mention that that is still the position of NMA. I just spoke with Mr. President, and he's saying the same thing, that we do not, as NMA, we will not accept locum employment or casualization of doctors. And on that basis, if NARD decide that they don't want to work on that basis, NMA may not have any choice but to give them the backing. Thank you, sir.
Casualization is not known to labor law. As a labor leader, when I was still in active service, I remember we used to picket even manufacturing industries that engage in casualization, not to talk of an industry that takes care of human lives. With all these revelations that we have been exposed to here today, we have been grappling with Nigerian lives for a very long time. And we do say that in a situation where a husband suddenly becomes impotent
and the wife is experiencing a temporary period of menopause, then different concussions will have to be prepared for the two of them, because the husband is not suffering from the same thing as the wife. You can't use a medication that is meant for leprosy to cure epilepsy. Please, I'm appealing. When I heard the CMD Ibadan giving his submission the other time that people worked during the COVID-19 and were not paid. You see, human psychology has taught us that no matter how difficult or hard a job is, if salary is attached to it, people will take it, and every worker will take it, because the worker knows that at the end of the month, he will go home with something. And no matter how easy, how attractive a job is, if it's going to be based on pro bono, nobody will take it up. Please, people being on Locum, or what do you call it, for up to 2 years, they will get demoralized, for God's sake. These people are not dealing with files. They are dealing with human beings. And human beings are the most difficult to handle. If you put this report to here, for the next 2 years, and nobody touches it, it remains there. But as a man to sit down, that you are going to use, before you come back, he must have changed positions up to 12 times before you come back. Please, I'm appealing to our conscience. Let us be more humane. Let us respect the sanctity of human life. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Chairman.
For us to have a good budget, there has to be a proper planning, and that is why they are always lumped together, budget and planning. I did mention earlier, and it is because I have discussed with some of the CMDs. Currently in Nigeria, we don't have a proper structured staff requirements for all the hospitals. We don't. This hospital should have this number of consultants, this number of nurses, this number of residents, this number of house officers. Once you have this, budget will capture it at the beginning of the year. And once that is done, particularly residents, they are not regular people, they are not pensionable at that stage. So they can easily be replaced because of the peculiarity of their circumstance. They normally stay in the system between 4, maximum of 7 years. They are out. So the CMD, all they need to do is go to the Federal Minister of Health, get clearance. These people have exited. These are the documents. Okay, go ahead and replace. I can assure you, all this talk about brain drain, any advert that any of these hospitals put out now for any position, you will get 10 times the number they require that will apply for it. They are there. So let us not use excuses. Please, budget man, we know you are a good man. Between you, head of service, and Federal Minister of Health, let's have this plan done as quickly as possible. And the CMDs will be able to perform the functions that they are engaged to do quickly, correctly, and swiftly. Thank you very much.
Sometimes it hurts when you hear people in authority talking on labor issue with some level of arrogance. They heat up the whole processes. And we've been here. They've gone on strike twice this year over the same issue. I don't know, am I right? Over the same issue. That's the same thing happening with academic staff or ASU. We keep promising and we do nothing. And I thank God that all the CMDs here and then MDs here are also medical professionals. I don't know when you went to school, but from 90, some of us that went to university from 90 to about 1999, we spent, in ABU, I know we spent more than 5 years without going to clinicals. Over 5 years because of strike and so many things. And then you graduate and there are opportunities in different countries waiting for you to go. Why won't you take it? Many doctors are willing and desirous to make this country work. But the situation is so difficult. I pity the CMDs, what they're actually going through. Let's make it easy for them to achieve their aim.
Let's make the doctor too happy to work in Nigeria. I appeal to the executive. Please, let's make things easy for people. Let there be dignity of labor in Nigeria. I'm happy that we have labor person. And you too, sir, you've been a comrade. It's unfortunate. You're still a comrade, sir.
We are all comrades.
No, it's unfortunate that year in, year out, we keep talking about the same thing. If care is not taken, sir, we are talking about this before the end of the year. We will still come back dealing with the same problem. So when are we going to go forward? When in medical science, some countries have already moved forward. It's unfortunate that a country like Nigeria, if you are looking up for us as for health rating, you start from the bottom. It's unfortunate. With the brains we have, Nigerian doctors are the best everywhere in the world. So why is it difficult for us here? It's the institutional problems we are having. It's the system. And if you put, no matter how good you are as a driver, if you enter a car that has bad injector, is it carburetor they call it or what? It cannot move. So let's put the system right and see our health system getting to where it's supposed to go. So please, I beg us here. Many of us here, from the Ministry of Health to the Minister of Labor, we are all health professionals. And then we should be passionate about development of health and then human resources for health in Nigeria. It's unfortunate, honestly. So I pray that, Chairman, we are on recess, but you have to call. I was telling somebody that 3 days ago that I know that this meeting will come when I saw this strike. I met a doctor yesterday. She didn't know who I was. I was standing somewhere. She began to complain in ASO clinic that they've not paid them COVID allowance. If ASO clinic have not paid COVID allowance, so I don't know. You know, it's unfortunate. She didn't know who I was. I was just standing and they were complaining, fighting. They were just coming from complaining. So how would you expect that person will go back and look at which modern techniques of treating this so and so? You know, the person goes home and is already tired, frustrated, will just go and sleep the next day. Reluctantly go back to work. You cannot get the best from people that are working like that. People will keep dying under highly well-trained professionals because they are not committed to the job. And if you want commitment, you must pay well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let us welcome the Honorable Minister of Health.
And to also just ask for leave to be able, because we have a very important press briefing that we must hold at 4 o'clock. We have been ordered to give press briefing every other week, that the PSC does not give a press briefing, and I will crave your permission to leave at about in 30 minutes time to catch that press briefing. And I'm confident that the ministry is here ably represented. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, first, let me add my commendation to the chairman, Dr. Nunu, for this initiative, and as it often does when we find ourselves in this situation. But I think that if we're going to find a lasting solution to this problem, one of the things we must do is speak truth to ourselves. And let me begin with the issue of waivers. First of all, it is absolutely untrue that waivers take up to 1 year. I wasn't here when Professor Ahijo spoke, and I don't know if he's the one who claimed that it takes 1 year. But I do recall, and I have the copies of this year. last year, we received from University of Maiduguri a request for approval to replace essential staff. It was dated 29th May, received in my office on the 15th of June. I recall that in August, Professor Ahijo came to my office to express concern that this had taken, and I remember checking with my staff and said there had been some back and forth between them in providing the documents required. But I recall him, and I put my staff to do whatever to ensure that the approval was done. And so, we received the request in June, and they got the approval in August. So, however, even that is not satisfactory. Internally, we have a turnaround period for 2 weeks, but that's 2 weeks from when you submit all relevant documents. And we have repeatedly, issued circulars to state what these documents are. I know, understandably, Dr. Askira is passionate about his profession. But at the end of the day, we're a nation of laws. We're a nation of order. You want to recruit people. You want to ensure that there's a plan. I think someone made that point. The head of service conducts with agencies annually what is called a manpower plan. Manpower board meeting, where you go and present a case for the people that you want to recruit, your staff need. Going forward, it's not going backward. On the basis of which the head of service, office of head of service, issues what is called an authorized establishment. That authorized establishment, I think someone described it as proper structured staffing plan. Yes, that's what that is supposed to be. That projects your need by category over a period. And most of even the hospitals sitting here have not exhausted their authorized establishment. Most of them have room between their authorized establishment and what they currently have. Because of the complexity in preparing the personnel cost budget, usually every year by April, we issue the personnel budget called circular. So the personnel budget for 2022, by April this year, we had issued the circular outlining what people needed to submit. This is a plan based on this thing there. So this is when you present us all your whatever is saying, including even the needs that first you start with the people you have on board. And you have then provision to make a case of people that you will need to take on board, which you haven't. And we create what we call, for those who provide the justification, anticipatory approval as part of the budget that we present to you for approval. Over and above that, annually, we make provision for contingencies for personnel, which is called public service wage adjustment in the service-wide vote, knowing that there may be contingencies, there will be. We don't make policies in the budget office. Our job is to implement and enforce policies. The Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation in 2017 issued a circular which remains the extant policy position, outlining the procedures for recruitment into the public service in Nigeria. Last year, in the wake of COVID-19, the Federal Executive Council approved a suspension of recruitment in other areas except the medical and security sector. And there was good logic behind that. These were the only two sectors that didn't go on lockdown. They continued to walk through the, the pandemic. It didn't make sense in the other sectors where people had been sent home, largely from level 12 and below had been sent home, to keep recruiting. Are you going to recruit to keep them at home? So there was logic behind that. Therefore, during the, throughout the pandemic, the budget office didn't lock down. We worked throughout the pandemic. The office of the head of service didn't. And therefore, the notion that because of the pandemic, procedures should be wholly jettisoned is not one that will endorse. First, that time, given that it was even limited to these two sectors, it would have been faster. But the truth is that this problem is not a pandemic problem. There is none of the hospitals here that has not received approval to recruit in the last 2 years. Indeed, over the last 2 years, we've granted approvals to 75 federal medical institutions based on their request to recruit a total of 7,970 personnel. And I have the breakdown here, institution by institution. Therefore, any health institution that is carrying a locum staff over 2 years is simply, over that period, they have received approval. The fact is that there are some of the hospitals who have locum staff that they are carrying. They get approval to recruit. They recruit brand new people, leave those ones who are on locum as locum. That's one of the issues. I think earlier on, it's unfortunate, and I'm not picking on the CMD in UCH, but then I think his own case had been cited specifically by the president of NARD. CMD, it's true. The number that he gave, 901, is true. But there are not 901 medical doctors. When we did our analysis, and the report is here, we sent a copy of this report to the Minister of Health, so hopefully they have a copy. In April 2021, when we reviewed, UCH was carrying a total of 901 people then as locum. 518 of them were medical, related staff. Well, if we add to the 518, I think the CMD explained to me this evening that those specialist advisors are also medical. So if you add them, I think there are 6 or so specialist advisors, then you will have, maybe 520, 525 who are medical. The locum staff that UCH had, 209 of them were what we classified as non-medical related staff. And I'll give you an example of, who these people are. These people included a total of about 20, just almost 30 what they call locum admin staff, locum administration staff. They included Locum security men, despite the fact that government policy is to outsource, all of these people. They included Locum laundry officers. They included a number of people, some people got Locum sessional staff. They included some people just called contract staff and whatever. So the reality is, they just label contract staff. You don't know what this thing there. Included some people called intern dietetics, and quite a number of them. But as I said, altogether, 209 of these people. They included about 154 house officers who were classified as, Locum. And there's a procedure in service for getting these people to. So, I'm aware that I understand at some meeting, people were promised that these people are just going to be, moved from GIFMIS to IPs. But I'm sorry, sir. Between the office of the head of service and the budget office, we're not going to be able to do that. We've asked for, the documentation, and if people have not been properly recruited, they have to go back and regularize the process so people are properly. We can't be whatever where you pack people onto the payroll without doing due, and then we create a crisis like this, and you say, oh, automatically capture all of them on IPs. And next year we will have a similar situation. We must be careful in trying to solve a problem, not to reinforce bad behavior, because it creates and it sustains the problem. We need to solve this problem in a way that is sustainable, so that in future we will not have this sort of problem. Doctors calls it casualization of doctors. The term locum, I think it's as I started growing up, I heard about the term locum in association with hospitals. It's not a new terminology. Even private hospitals engage locum doctors or whatever. But the notion that, you can just get up and, the idea is it's a window to get the people in while you then follow the process. But that process shouldn't then take, for forever if you do the right, if you do the right thing. And by the way, to clarify, one of the honorable members was talking about residents needing to be pensionable. Residents are indeed pensionable. Yes. They have been since, I believe, it's 2017. So, my point is, we need to make ourselves to, an orderly, process, so that, if we employ people, we are sure that there are people who are needed and people that we can pay. There is a budget. We can't spend without appropriation. So if honorable members are saying, oh, it's okay, if anybody needs somebody, they should just go and recruit them, then, you're also, mandating us to ignore your appropriation, which is an act, and be able to, so you're saying to people that they should ignore the appropriation. In the appropriation law, for each of these hospitals, you've appropriated an amount, for personnel costs. And usually, beyond what we do, the budget submission, you engage directly with each of these hospitals, and you're able to hear them. So if at that point, they think that the provision we have made for their personnel costs was inadequate and didn't take into account of this, and that's why the appropriation is a joint responsibility. I don't recall that you have then come back to us to say, we engaged with this hospital and they said, this doesn't cover their needs, therefore we need additional to whatever, and we have said, but the point is, you can't, basically just provide for food without, many of the hospitals, the mix between the clinical and non-clinical staff is simply not consistent with what we understand that it ought to be. And we recognize that there's pressure, there's unemployment. We all have, relations, we have, hence we have people in our communities pressurizing us, but we have to be able to, to basically hold back on, these pressures without acting in a way that might create, more problems. We're currently, there's the Presidential Committee on Salaries, because what has happened is, look, 6 years ago, the personnel cost budget was 1.8 trillion. Just based on the preliminary numbers that we have for 2022, we're at 4. We had pension. We are close to 4.6 trillion naira. To put this in context, the total revenues earned by the federal government in 2020 was 3.94 trillion naira. So we can't, basically say it's okay, anybody, whoever you want, just add to, to the payroll. That's why these breaks are being, applied. Right now, the suspension in other sectors still hasn't been lifted. It's still just health and security that are allowed to, to recruit. But please, let's do this in an orderly manner and in a way that, is sustainable. We have raised it. We agree. Recently, the Office of Head of Service, ourselves, that's the Budget Office, and the Federal Character Commission met on our own to say, look, how can we shorten this whole process? One of the decisions we made was that for us as the Budget Office, we're no longer going to concern ourselves with Federal Character Commission to give clearance, because that is at the level of implementation. Their job really is not to, because we realized that, when we looked at, the complaints and the delay points, it seemed to be age or whatever, and we said, so now when you get head of service waiver, you give to us. You can be pursuing your whatever with federal character, which is process, implementation. We no longer require their parents prior to giving our waivers. And so, because I would say, so people should just go and whatever. One more reason why you can't is there is a law called Federal Character Commission, the Federal Character Law. And the agency wants to ensure that the hospitals are complying. So they have to carry them along when they are to ensure that there is the balance in recruiting. And the National Assembly passed that law, and they haven't, there's a commission, so they haven't determined that that should be left in the hands of individual chief executives to determine whether there is balance in their organizations. The law says that, the commission must be brought in to make that determination before they recruit and after, they recruit. So these are practical realities which I believe have necessitated the resort to, Locum. So the problem is not, look, and I don't think that amounts to, cheapening or casualization across every profession in this country. There is the provision for, contract, or indeed, in every country in the world that I know of, there's provision for contract, for temporary, whatever you call it. The term locum is, our own whatever here. And if that's a pragmatic way to think, that's so be it. We, on our own part, have also written to the Ministry of Health, suggesting that between them and the head of service, there's a need to agree on a streamlined process for even getting the locum people, for bringing people on board as locum. That process, we hope, can then set a mandatory limit as to how long that you can keep, someone on that. Before now, it had been easy for hospitals to bring somebody on locum, just keep them on that. When you get your waiver, you put people into this thing without prioritizing those people in terms of migrating them to your permanent, payroll before, determining. So I think I'll basically stop at that unless there's need for a follow-up question. Sorry, the head of service is about this matter of revalidation of waivers. This matter of revalidation of waivers came about because, sadly, it was discovered that there are people forging even head of service waivers and sending to budget office for recruitment. So the head of service now decided to invalidate all the waivers that are outstanding and say, you send to us, send us the waiver that that we gave you initially. We'll look at it. If indeed as this thing, we will revalidate the issue. And so there's a portal now that is created between the head of service and ourselves. So every waiver that they issue, they upload on that portal, and we can independently access it for validation. In the interim, while the portal was being developed, what they do is they send us an advanced copy of every waiver that they issue, so that we eliminate the specter of forged waivers. So these are all some of the practical issues that lead to people coming up with stringent procedures. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this well-informed but sad development. Accusation of forging signatures, if there is fact that nomenclatures are introduced, if there is fact that both parties are arguing here and there, it becomes a very serious issue. But nevertheless, we have identified problem. People are recruited. The process wasn't followed in some aspects. That has affected the service delivery. And we are in a situation whereby service has been interrupted. I spoke with the head of service, and of which I passed it to the permanent secretary. Her stand was that the erring people must be sanctioned. And I think that falls within the ambit of the Federal Ministry of Health. And I've directly communicated that to the permanent secretary on that recommendation from the head of service. Because she has made mention of what has been revealed now, and I think most of the MDs that have communicated to them, that people introduce so much terminologies. Locum media, locum, all this locum, and it becomes so that we have it's creating so much huge this. So the question is now, before some few people that intend to respond, is the DG budget you have mentioned so much extensively, but we still want you to address way out. Because you have mentioned all what you have mentioned. You have enumerated the problems, but you have not suggested way out, which after some few comment, please, can you think of way out? How do you address these labor matters now as vis-a-vis following the due process and with respect to laid down procedures of employment that will attract release from your office. We need to have a way out. Yes.
Well, thank
Chairman
you.
Committee of CMD, sorry. Maybe probably they may add some question that you may respond at the same time.
Thank you again once more for this. It's in the hope that this strike will be called off as soon as possible to save Nigerians from further hardship. Let me say, of all the things that have been said here today, we have 56 federal hospitals, and today we have here about 10 to 12 hospitals that have been called because of the issue of temporary staff. That's the way I would like to put it. There are various types of temporary staff. You have not just locum, you have also contract staff that you may employ who are specialists that are needed acutely. You have visiting consultants, you have all sorts of people that you may have to engage on a temporary basis. You also have honorary staff who are staff basically of the university but must render services in the hospital. That will explain some of the things that you saw on UCH list. And I believe that what needs to be done is to sit down with the CMD and look at it critically. Because many of those advisory specialists predates his being CMD, many years before he became CMD. And those are as a result of staff who are working in the university and rendering services in the hospitals that were recruited in advisory capacity. Should it be or should it not be? Let it, between head of service and the Ministerial head, clean up the list and say who should stay on it, rather than, direct accusations, that have not been well substantiated. We must look at who has employed locum media, locum this, why did this happen, and why have they not been regularized? So, but it will take time to clean up that list, and therefore to regularize their pay or regularize their appointment. Should we remain on strike while that process is going on? That's another issue. Now, I want to say also, in advising the DG budget as to what should be done, my advice and my take has always been, I will indulge the attention of the DG budget if he's not distracted by one of our colleagues. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. What has always been said is that, yes, because now you have to advise now on the way forward. So, for the interest of all of us. So, I want to make suggestion. I'm here because I'm chairman of committee of CMD, and I've seen the pains that we all 50-something hospitals have to go through because one or two persons or 3 or 10 or 20 have been perceived to make mistake. But we see that short payment is still going on amongst other staff. The other day we looked at the list, visiting consultant. We are told that one hospital is paying too little. But today, that hospital doesn't even have that amount to pay what they are paying too little. So while other hospitals were told they are paying too much, even the one that was paying too little doesn't have the money to pay now. So we know that this year's budget had issues on the non-regular. And that issue was being solved by your budget manager. And I think that process should be concluded and access should be given to the chief executive to pay the salaries of all the workers who have been verified, because that process has been done by your due diligence in your office. But we still, not all the hospitals have access to the monies that you have approved for them to clean up that list. And finally, sir, in terms of how quickly we can recruit staff, which are the process of approval has been shortened, and we pray that it works out seamlessly. Because in reality, what we saw was that the back and forth of telling the hospital to submit this and submit that often led to, instead of 2 months, becoming 6 months. It has happened, and we have documents to those facts. But if we computerize it and create a portal for it, and we can access it, and it becomes similar, because as I'm speaking to you, I may come back to the hospital now and find that my only psychiatrist has resigned. Yes, and then there is somebody who has mental illness on admission. What do I do? This is the reality of the wage movement now in the health sector. I may find out that my only medical physicists, 2 of them have gone to Saudi Arabia. By the time I resume tomorrow morning, what do I do? So, like the DG budget said, there will always be room for temporary, I don't want to use the word locum, who you may have to intervene immediately in order to keep the services running. A few hospitals have done this. We have invited about 12 hospitals or less, but there are 56 federal tertiary hospitals. So I want to say we should not use the same hand to treat everybody. Again now, the issue of forgery of waiver has been mentioned. Who forged it? Who forged? They should find out that person and punish it, the person, rather than create further bottlenecks. Because these are further bottlenecks. When you say they should come back for additional validation of a previously approved waiver, just because 1 or 2 persons who may not even be in the health sector has forged a previous waiver. Punish that person, rather than make our people suffer for lack of staff being employed on time. So I think that those that have 20, 30 locum or temporary staff, we should quickly harmonize and clear them for regularization. Thank God most people are in the process of regularization already. I thank you, sir.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. I can also, tomorrow, there's a cash management committee chaired by the Honorable Minister of Finance.
Yes.
NARD. Can we, have this thing that if the provision for the 2022, we get the input in the next few hours, we've committed to take it into the budget. Okay. Can we agree? Can we get some whatever from us to say,
President,
based on this, by
we have
they will go ahead and call off the strike while other things are being worked out?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Extracted a lot of.
Thank you very much, sir. I can assure you that if we get some certain things done, Chief, I have a small voice. So I can assure you, sir. No, sir, I'm not. Thank you. You are blessing me, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. He's my mentor, sir. Also. Yes. For when he was a speaker, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, I can assure you and this committee that if we have some certain things I can take back to my members who call off the strike. Some are monetary and some are non-monetary. The non-monetary, sir, the House officers circular. That circular needs to be withdrawn. No, just said if I should give a commitment, sir. Commitment, sir. I'm trying to direct us on the right path.
You see, NARD President. You see, I always like sincerity of purpose. Remember my personal discussion with you. You understand? I said sincerely speaking. I'm coming. When I called you, when we discussed, I said sincerely speaking, give me your minimum demand. No, but you agree you gave me 2.
No, sir.
No. You gave me 2. You are adding 1 now.
Sir, I actually told you now.
No, I'm sincerely speaking, you didn't give me 3. You gave me 2. And even as Gira will know that I think I've discussed that with him. 2, was it you or somebody? You gave me this in medical residency training funding, addressing the issue of your members that are on give me's. That's the one you gave me. Except it
Sir.
can't be true now. I
Sir.
can't be lying.
I can't,
Ask all those that know my antecedent. I don't tell lies.
I know what I say. That's why when Madam says something,
But now you are adding. You are adding.
I'll give you an example, sir.
Yes.
I told you earlier, even in the last time we were on strike, that if we have 2020, 2014, 2015, 2016,
Which
but
circular are you talking? The one of
the one you
removing
discussed
the
here,
house officers in the
from the scheme of service. It's simple. It's
okay,
not,
the
it's not,
clarification by the office of the head of
Yes,
service
it's
is not
not-
acceptable.
it's not- yes,
It's not acceptable. You say? Yes. Okay.
So when the circular came out, we draw in the House officers and NYSC doctors, specifically stating that the scheme of service. We wrote her, and we sent our committee members. We had a meeting, and we told her that we are not satisfied that the way it is worded, even if when it can predate a tenure, and it can be misinterpreted, because she was saying that is not exactly what she meant, that it does not affect the remuneration, and it does not affect whatever they take home. When I said, well, that is what you're explaining verbally, but what majority understands from it is different from that. So she now said, okay, she's going to do something about it. But at the end of the day, when she wrote that, we also realized that it still falls short. And we're trying to say, step it down. I mean, especially in the midst of this crisis, in the midst of all this negotiation, circular comes out that even worsen the situation. So NMS is saying that house officers are workers. They are not in training. They only supervise workers, who is an essential part of the health system in this country. If we don't have house officers, it's even difficult to work. So we are saying that it's not acceptable that it cannot be, that it's an intern, thus a temporary job. No, they are part and parcel of the practice. They are not students. They have been given permission to prescribe and to be honored by any pharmacy and to be accepted by patients.
There are some issues of which we can address them even after the strike. You understand? We can address them even after strike. But if you say that those 4 demands must be met before you can call up the strike, I think it becomes this. And that's why me and you, we are all veterans in this.
In the last meeting, sir, the DG budget. In the last,
maybe if you hear me out, you will understand.
Maybe it will address your question.
It will address to employ anybody who has not done NYSC. You do your house officer before you become eligible for NYSC. And that is why it is deemed to be a form of internship before you are. So for you to be saying that house officers should be treated as employees is to say that the head of service should break the existing law of the land. So if the NYSC Act is amended to now say that except this Act does not apply to house officers, but they cannot be employees of the government if they have not done youth service. And right now, you do house officer before you become eligible for youth service. So that's why I say we're a nation of law. So if we know that that is this, and then you can, if you then disagree with the law, then you go and lobby whoever needs to amend the law to amend the law. But you can't now require the head of service to break the law.
Actually, the Honorable Chair in the House, on this matter, we went to the head of service office, and stakeholders was convoked with all other people that were concerned. And we discussed this. One of the directors posited same position, that the scheme of service from grade level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to whatever grade, and the scheme where they have different schemes, recognize the issue of NYSC, that a house officer has not gotten NYSC certificate. We simply asked him, grade level 3 officer and grade level 5 officer, did they even go to university? Where is their NYSC certificate? Let us not jumble things. We agreed with her there that the scheme of service is not about NYSC. Because there is grade level 1 to 17. Let's be calm. No, we agreed there.
Employed as university graduates. The law says if you have gone to university,
we agreed.
Or you have, or to a polytechnic.
Let me finish, sir. You will understand, sir, if you listen. We now agreed that the scheme of service where house officers were captured was done by intellectual progressive Nigerians, and they have reasons why it is very important in our democratic economy to have house officers in the scheme of service. Today, they are removing it. Have they satisfactorily confided in Nigerians and us that the decision taken by the forefathers to include it was faulty, and that they have a better reason which is best for the economy? That is why they are removing it. And we told them they don't have that. Listen, you are not there, sir. We told them they don't have any better reason why they are removing it, and we are going to tell them the detrimental effect of removing it. Housemanship in medical practice, sir. All of us here, you see, the professors here that taught me and myself, you are not a medical doctor at all to practice in Nigeria if you have not done housemanship. So, medical practice is so peculiar that you have to understand. You cannot sit down one day and decide that you will truncate one of the necessary steps in the practice of medicine without justifying the reason, and the enemy will agree. My fear and the reason why we are talking today, sir, the Honorable Sir, enemy is going for a NEC meeting this month. We don't want this issue to be another issue of enemy strife. That is why we are advising, even the head of service, tell her she wouldn't have been a doctor if she did not do housemanship. So, they should simply and easily withdraw this obnoxious circular, which is detrimental to our democratic economy, especially medical practice in Nigeria, because they don't have any sufficient reason for it. It does not have any implication except for negative implication if it is removed. So this is the position on the NYSC stuff, sir. But on the issue of the 2016, 2017, 20 whatever, when it was brought here, you remember when you were Secretary, I was not present, it was dealt with during the time when Speaker was Dogara. So what happened was the same DG budget posited to us during the negotiation that there was a directive and a committee he chairs whereby all MDAs were called upon to submit all salary arrears, of which all the hospital will submit to him, his committee, and they will deal with those 2016, 2017, 2014, 16, and 16, 15 and 16. So, what I was expecting his response as at today is to tell us that the hospital did not submit to him
The budget?
the DG budget, because he told us he's chairing a committee during the last meeting on this matter, during the last NARD strike, that he was chairing a committee mandated by the president of the country, Abi, that, yes, that all of those shortfall salary arrears for all MDS were going to be convoked and submitted to him.
Because I was getting confused initially when Dr. Askira was referring to when Dogara was speaker, because this committee is recent. This year, I chair a committee with, that is an inter-agency meeting that is holistically reviewing the claims for salary arrears. And we issued a service-wide circular asking every agency of government, if you have any salary arrears for your people, it was not by cadre. Didn't send for doctors, by institution. So this is not even it's not necessarily coming from Ministry of Health. It's coming from the hospitals, if they have any of their, and some of them have submitted. We have hundreds of this. The committee is working on a first in, first out basis, and as they finish and certify, we send to the minister. She signs off and sends for for payment. There are documents that are meant to be submitted to evidence that these people haven't been paid previously. Okay. No, this is education. So the first batch, we had 50-something that had been listened. The second one, something, those who, as they satisfy the documentation requirements. I don't have that list here, but I suspect it may include hospital units, because it's not done on a cadre. It's not. This thing is agency by agency, any agency that. And this circular is several months old as we speak. Some of the agencies are only just submitting theirs. Even as of today, we are only still just receiving submissions. Yes. The only, point of departure then was that the doctors said that their own case should be treated differently. They should be, even if we're going to treat your case differently, we have to receive the submissions from all the health institutions, holistically, and then look at it. But we think that the equitable thing to do is, if we issue a circular like that, to attend to it on a first-in, first-served basis. Those who submit as it enters the queue, because when you start picking and whatever, then you now create the window for the committee to start shopping for this. So if you only submitted today, okay, if we like you, we do your own first.
Backlog of workers not yet concluded. We have the issue of circular with house officers, and then the 2014, 2015, 2016 shortfall, within which we are also going to agree on a committee. Please let the budget tell you all the other relevant decisions. So I want to make a decision. Honorable Minister, in your opinion, do you think that this meeting should reconvene tomorrow with members of those subcommittee to discuss those issues? Or we allow the ministry to discuss with all the stakeholders mentioned, so that we can get the feedback and call NARD for further decision?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm disposition to this discussion, because my colleague, Dr. Uyilawa, I hope I pronounced that name, he did say that everything is caused by Minister of Health. He said everything. And I was just waiting to see, item by item, how all these things, all these problems have been caused by the Minister of Health. And we're beginning to see that that is not the true situation. Now, this shortfall, but let me just answer your question. Yes, we'll be here tomorrow. Let's do it together so that we know, and that's what I said ab initio, that let's know where the problem lies and face it. Rather than just be trading games and all that. Let's know. The Ministry of Health does not
It's not the gatekeeper of funds. And whether we like it or not, the fundamental issue here is funding. Pure and simple. Don't let us be, I've said that ab initio, is funding. If the funds are available, if the funds are with us in Ministry of Health, we'll pay who we should pay. But thank God the budget man is here, who is also one of the gatekeepers of the funds. So I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, yes, let us all sit down. And he has, my good friend Ben, he has helped us to say he will bring this or he will ask this person to come, so that we know we have to face. So we are in agreement that we meet here tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And I think we have done an extensive discussion. We are beginning to find way out and solution to these problems. And I believe that all those who are here, the comment of the Honorable Minister serves as invitation. We are not going to serve any other invitation to anybody, so that we all convey here tomorrow 11. Yes. So we adopt your distance. So we are going to extend invitation immediately to relevant authorities that have been mentioned by the DG budget, so that we'll continue to this. And I think, as it is now, there is no sacrifice that is too much. We have to remember that life is being lost. Service is being demanded. And we have the reason to render that services. So we should work together continuously to our decision. On the other hand also, the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors and Nigerian Medical Association, in issue of negotiation, is always give and take. Some that are critical can be addressed immediately, but others, you give way. While you are working, we continue to negotiate. And then tomorrow we also, and I even made this call in the morning, when I was at the channel television. Honorable Minister, I think it's high time now that the ministry should ask the man from the Ministry of Labor to do the needful by tracking all agreement reached and timeline, notifying the minister of where we have bottlenecks. Definitely, whenever there is strike, two people are at the receiving end of condemnation. Whether we like it or we don't like it, whether you are the cause or you are not the cause, doctors and the Federal Ministry of Health. And that's true, because the mandate is for us to give service delivery. When we don't give, people will condemn us. We condemn the doctors and we also condemn the ministry, whether wrong or right. I must be able to accept that really we have to allow people to work with their perception. But if we realize that, and we realize that life loss can never be replaced, that must motivate us to work hard so that we can find our solution. It's on this note, on behalf of this committee, I want to specifically thank all the members that we have so far invited for coming together to brainstorm. We've started with some difficulties, but at last the end justifies the means. And we are ready to come here tomorrow so that we can continue with deliberation. In the absence of any further comment, I want to call one of our members to please move the motion for adjournment. Say aye. Aye. It's only for that member.